I am in Alliance, Ohio, outside of the Troll Hole. This is a folk art environment, and it has the largest collection of troll dolls. Of course, the most trolls are actually located on YouTube, but this is the largest physical troll doll collection. And I'm very excited to see this, so we're going to head in and check this out. Of course, you gotta pay the troll toll to get into the troll hole, not the boy's soul. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia reference. Do yourself a favor if you haven't seen that and go look that up. There's some trolls depicted on the side of this building. I'm suspecting this is going to be very interesting. So it says, come and see the museum, view the world record, largest troll doll collection, the second biggest selling toy in history. The Troll Hole was opened in 2014 by the curator Sherry Groom, the Troll Queen, who unfortunately was not there that day. The hole is one of the leaders in revitalizing the old downtown of Alliance, and it's housed inside of a former Montgomery Ward department store and a Singer sewing machine factory. This has got to be the best place to come learn the history and folklore behind trolls, and also view a seemingly endless amount of them. Now, let's enter the magical world of the Troll Hole.
To make weird things like this for a living, among other things. But in our collection, we have the Guinness Book of World Records largest troll doll collection. The way that works is that each doll has to be unique and individual from another doll, which we are over the 8,000 mark. But if you include duplicates in that collection, Sherry, the owner, has over $20,000 in storage. Mostly, but you'll be seeing pretty much the duplicate, or not the duplicates, the individual unique ones over the course of the tour. How long it's been around, and then we'll also introduce you to some trolls you probably haven't heard of before that are rather famous. And the idea with this is that you can customize a troll doll to whatever team you like, or really any kind of costume or face paint or whatever you can think of. Get imaginative. Bring it to the museum, donate it. We'll put it in the crowd of the stadium so that they can watch the Troll Bowl game happen, and then you can tell all of your friends that you have something in the museum. Give you a brief. Why is there a bunch of cardboard armor here? We're doing a promotion called the Cardboard Obliteration Battle in 2020. You'll be able to choose Team Knight or Team Troll, and you go out into a field and knock the snot out of each other with your cardboard armor, and it will be a costume contest. You can paint the armor. We head into the museum. Give you a quick highlight. This is what we call people. People send us trolls and give us trolls all the time. Sometimes it's just one troll, sometimes it's a bag of trolls surprising us at the front door on the pavement outside when we come in that we're not expecting. And we've had someone bring an entire U-Haul all the way up from Florida and drop it off at our doorstop filled with memorabilia. So this is a doll that belonged to someone in the 1960s, and this was the box that she kept it in and all the accessories. So it's just its little bed, so we keep it in the box that they played with it. So changed their hair, changed their skin color and eyes. These ones in here are my favorite. They were made by a guy named Ted Noah, who is a television personality down in Florida. He does weather and traffic. At some point, some of these will probably go into the stadium, but we keep them out here for the time being. Scandinavia, which are the 5 most northern countries of Europe: Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, and Iceland. A lot of the stories we have about trolls in folklore and mythology come from these two gentlemen, Peter Asbjørnsen and Jørgen Moe. They were contemporaries of the Brothers Grimm, who gave us fairy tales like Cinderella, Rapunzel, and things like that. And if you're familiar with those stories in the time period in which they were written, they were friends of the work of the Brothers Grimm, wrote them some letters and said, hey, could you show us how to write down the folk tales of Scandinavia the same way that you wrote down the folk tales of Germany? They did. They wrote a really big book. A lot of the stories in that book were about trolls, and one of them was very famous here in North America, Three Billy Goats Gruff. So we have that story because they wrote it down. Big nerd, I love that stuff. They got Thor and Odin, the guys from the comic books, who are based off of the real mythology from Scandinavia, to the troll doll in a really fun way. A lot of the variations in their physical appearance are dependent on which country the trolls are from. So if you were a troll growing out of your back, if you are from Iceland, there goes my voice. If you're from Iceland, you might be a troll that looks a lot like an elf. They've got big noses, big ears, 4 fingers, 4 toes, and a tail, and that's what our two mascots here behind you, Magnus and Ingrid, are based off of. They go out to different public events and promote the music. If you see Magnus or Ingrid out and about, say hi. Magnus likes to dance with the ladies. So, so aside from the whole eating people part, basically they're just like human beings, that you get every type of personality, every type of demeanor. The depictions of trolls in art through the years are just as wide and varied. These illustrations are from over 100 years ago. This one's from the 1990s. Sometimes they're cute, sometimes they're ugly, sometimes they're mysterious. And Hollywood loves using trolls. They've kind of become the go-to generic creature for monster movies. We've got a running count of somewhere between 30 and 60 TV and movies that feature trolls in some form or fashion, and that keeps growing. I've lost count as to what's what. So NBC Universal currently owns the worldwide copyright everywhere except for Scandinavia to the troll doll design. That was recently purchased from DreamWorks Pictures, which created the movie that came out in 2016. They created well over 19,000 cross-marketing items to promote the movie. Everything from underwear to Chia Pets, and the most expensive item they produced this far was the Princess Poppy tiara at Macy's, which was real gold, diamonds, and emeralds, and sold for $1.3 million. Some important things in the movie that are important to the history of the toy, hidden in plain sight, but if you're not aware of them, you can blink and miss them. And that is because the very first troll dolls were hand carved out of wood. And then the name of the bad guys, the creature name of the bad guys in the movie are Bergens, and they are named after a city in Norway, which is Bergen. Specifically, 3 different characters that they don't have the most prominent role in the movie, but they are an important nod to the history of the toy. One of them being the guy in the green hat right here. His name is Cooper. And he has a very different physical appearance from the rest of the trolls. Some people assume that he's the pet of the trolls, but he's not. He's a troll just like the rest of them, even though he has 4 legs, a long neck, and hair and dreadlocks that goes down instead of hair that goes up like the rest of the trolls. Now, when we get to another room in the museum, we'll explain why he has that appearance. And then these 2 characters right here, Satin and Chenille, who are always holding hands with their hair, they are not conjoined. A lot of people think they are. If you look closely in the movie, they do separate a couple of times. So this is our Troll Hunter cabin. It's based off of a movie called The Troll Hunter, which I do highly recommend. I was a fan before I even knew this museum existed. It is available on Netflix. The premise of the movie is that trolls are real creatures similar to Bigfoot, which would put trolls in the cryptozoology category, which is the science of studying unknown or mysterious creatures. In the movie, a lot of the events that happen, the names they give to the trolls, and just things they talk about are all based off of real folk tales that come out of Scandinavia, such as that if you expose a troll to sunlight, they'll turn into stone. If there's a Christian nearby, a troll knows it because they smell different to a troll. If you get them too close to the livestock on your farm, they might start eating your sheep and your goats and your pigs. Another thing that trolls are very famous for doing in folklore is stealing babies. So if you go up to your child's room and there's a log in your child's bed, you've just been swapped. A lot of parents tell me that's a fair trade. But they also like to swap out their own troll children for human babies, and occasionally a smaller troll called a changeling that can assume the appearance of a human child. Sometimes they want to turn them into a troll, but most of the time they just think they're cute and adorable and they want to keep them like a pet. So I always ask the little kids how they feel about cat food. All that they leave behind, they'll treat the human child well. If you treat it badly, they'll treat yours badly. And generally, they end up returning the human child after a while. Trace the idea of an iron ring warding off evil all the way back to the Vikings, where it was common practice. I can stay away. And if you like literature, the poem of Troll before it was used, but you can trace the name Troll back to a word Trollier. Who and what are you? And that's the response he gets in return. Doesn't make a ton of sense in English, but or let alone the original, but it's fun to read sometimes. There are 50 trolls hidden in plain sight. Some of them are very small and hidden in the trees. Some of them are very big and hidden in the rocks. You've got all sorts of sizes. So while you look for some of those trolls, I'll tell you about the 3 basic categories that trolls are divided into. First category would be the Bergsfrejatnar, or mountain trolls. They are the biggest, slowest, and dumbest of all of the trolls, usually the size of mountains, or they live inside of mountains. Your second category would be the Hudrfolk, hidden folk of the forest. or who the trolls, and they're the ones that look the most like human beings. The males generally just look like really ugly men with big feet, big noses, and ears, and a tail. The females generally look about the same, but on occasion they do have a daughter that looks like a beautiful human woman that has a tail like a cow that she hides under her dress, as most trolls can. The water trolls, one in particular is named a Naken. Ways to do that, and it's either to expose it to sunlight and it will turn into stone, or set it on fire. To the Smoky Mountains in the United States from war-torn Denmark, and they are all handmade. They start with a log, they attach all the pieces and parts to them from there, and aside from a few bits of fabric or a bead here or there that's plastic, they're all made out of natural materials. And being that each one of these is handmade means that each one is unique and individual and counts towards our Guinness record. But that also means Sherry needs to stop buying them at some point. Plastic ones with the rainbow hair. And it's just that the rainbow-haired ones are the ones that have caught on commercially. So that's the ones that most people are familiar with. So speaking of those trolls, it has 4 defining characteristics. First off, it's very heavy-duty vinyl. These guys can really take a beating, so it makes a really good toy. Second, there's usually a mark on the bottom of the foot that indicates that it is a Dam product. He named his company Dam Things. Is exactly the joke it sounds like. His name's actually pronounced Dom, but because of the spelling, he knew the world would mispronounce it, so he embraced the joke and ran with it. And he had a very risque sense of humor. If you find a date on the bottom of the doll, that's indicative of the year that the mold at the factory was made, not necessarily the year that the doll was made. Third, they usually have glass eyes. This guy's been replaced with plastic, but we do have quite a number of glass eyes that you'll see on the tour. And then the most important feature, number 4, is his hair. And we have over 10,000 items that are all related to trolls in some form or fashion that aren't dolls themselves. Trolls are actually the second highest grossing toy in history, second only to one toy, if you want to guess who number 1 is. Many companies, so there wasn't just one company raking in all that money. So probably why one particular brand is not more famous than the other. The peak of popularity before the DreamWorks Pictures purchase of the rights was around 19, whoever bought them. But when you make that much money, you want to know who's buying them so you can sell more to them. And they did notice that more girls than boys tended to purchase the toys. So that's what our little girls' room over here is all about, all revolved around trolls. The smaller ones like Houlihan's and the big giants like Burger King and McDonald's have all done marketing campaigns around trolls, which only makes sense because the troll-themed Barbie, it was a guaranteed bestseller. They had some very knockoffs of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or He-Man, and have accessories from other toy lines thrown in. In the United States, they have several reasons for why they've chosen trolls. One of them being that there's a large Norwegian population up in Sherry's son lives, and she is visited on several occasions, and they're always excited when the Troll Queen pays them a visit, and they get pictures of the Chamber of Commerce and all sorts of things. Trolling along. And when she decided to get out of the Troll Museum business, she put the bulk of her collection up for sale. Sherry purchased it, combined it with her own, and that gave her the Guinness Book of World Records.
This is a Michael Jackson troll. I found this interesting. It is apparently anatomically accurate. Not sure why that matters. That's freaky. A life-size troll costume. This is probably the single room on Earth with the most trolls inside of it. There are a few thousand smaller sized trolls lining the walls floor to ceiling.
Now the very first troll that Sherry ever got was this little guy right here, 5 years old, in her stocking at Christmas as a present from her parents. Her sisters each got one too. We don't know what happened to those trolls, but that one's still around. Someday you can have a collection this big. Now the bulk of our collection is made up of rust dolls, which is what's on this wall here, is the color of their hair and their clothing, which means that all you have to do is make one mold at the factory and reproduce it over and over and over. And they even streamlined it to the point where all of the dolls have the same eye color, which is brown. Exceptions to that rule. There is a Grandma and Grandpa troll doll with a different mold over here. There's a Frankenstein with a different with the gemstones in the belly button. And H. Novelty claimed that Russ stole their idea because Russ had already made troll dolls before. Russ was countersuing, saying, yeah, you made troll dolls before in the 1960s and they were knockoffs. But his family retained the rights from them. And in 2005, DreamWorks Pictures purchased the rights from the family everywhere except for Scandinavia. And that has since moved on to NBC Universal. You can make a doll that looks nothing like these. Call it a troll and be free and clear to do so. You can also make a toy that has a big head, pointy hair, and a tiny body, not call it a troll, and probably get away with that. When you combine those two ideas, that's when you're in copyright hot water. But there are still companies that still make knockoffs anyway, because generally if you produce something in 10,000 units or less, they don't even bother to sue you because it's not worth their time or money. They troll dolls that cater to that interest. Now, if you were having a 50th birthday party, they made troll dolls for that. If you had a favorite holiday dolls for that, they can get really obscure with some of the interest. Second reason they're so successful, if you were a salesman for Russ Bear. Now, if this guy right here looks familiar, it's because the long neck, 4 legs is based off of this toy. Damn Things produced several lines of troll animals, and they're considered troll dolls by the collectors. The giraffe is probably the most well-known to the general public. The elephant is extremely desirable among collectors too, but they made everything from turtles to badgers and raccoons, cats, dolls, anything you can think of in the animal category. Because we thought, oh, they might like the one that came from Denmark, where the troll doll originated from. When he was returned to us, we found out that he was in the running to make a cameo appearance in the Troll Doll Christmas special on TV, and he got beat out by somebody with better hair. So had they told us why they wanted to borrow the doll, we would have sent him the one with dreadlocks who has dreadlocks like the guy in the movie. I think Satin and Chenille are based on the two trollos that hold hands with their hair. He was produced in the Wishnick line. They called him a double nick for obvious reasons. The fact that he has 2 heads is not just for the sake of making a weird toy to catch someone's attention, which sure, that's part of it, but he has 2 heads because according to folklore, the older a troll gets, the more heads that they can grow, and they can grow up to 15. So he's just historically accurate, because they'll $100 and go up from there. They're really interesting. We're very lucky to have one of those because they cost a lot of money. Now the Damn Trolls in the 60s, that is extremely soft, and that is because it's the real wool, like we mentioned. He's a good. It was also a piggy bank. There's a slit in his back that you can see, and it's not uncommon for collectors to find loose change in these guys. You can tell the boys and girls apart in these because the boys have pointy ears, girls have round, and his shirt here is made out of felt, which is what is referenced in the modern Trolls movie, everything being made out of felt. With the different colors of hair and all of the different costumes types, and the fact that they mixed the vinyl in small batches, which meant that they had a really wide variety of eye colors on them as well. The Northens, you'll see, most of them had red, orange, or brown eyes, but the early Dams, there's purple and aquamarine and orange and blue and all green, all sorts of different colors for the eyes. There's a black one, a white one, and there's a rainbow colored one that's a bit of a unicorn that's very, 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 very difficult to find.
They named this large troll in the bathroom Elvis. Don't think that's too soon, but come on, there's gotta be something a little morbid with trolls, right?
The Wishnick company or Unita company with the Wishnick line had early licensing agreements with Dam. These are mostly pencil toppers. That usually we get into gumball vending machines, cereal boxes, or Cracker Jack back when I had prizes worth getting. I tell all the kids who come into the museum, and he is interesting because he was presented to Rod Stewart by Jay Leno on The Tonight Show, because Jay joked that Rod had hair like a troll doll, and that was the outfit Rod had worn on tour the previous year, so they had it reproduced and tailored specifically for the doll. I actually remember watching that episode. Why I remember it, I don't know, but I can confirm, yes, it was real. I watched it happen. The way that we acquired the doll in our collection is because Lisa Kerner actually dated Rod Stewart's accountant. So that's how we ended up getting it. The one with the butt sticking out of the hospital gown. I remember that as a kid being in a hospital gift shop. It's a hilarious way to use the doll. And then on the bottom shelf we have some of our outer space trolls. Were very interesting because they had some very elaborate play sets. These were 2 of the simplest. One was so elaborate that it was hexagonal and had tackle box pull-out levels to give it 3 levels and to create a play set that was... Unfortunately, they were made mostly out of vacuum formed plastic, which means that they become extremely brittle as they get older. He's very unusual because he's a knockoff that was made in the 70s, but he's unusual because his clothing is molded directly into the vinyl. And just like a Dam doll, he is a piggy bank. There was a line of 6 of these with different bodies that came in a collection if you could find them all. This guy's probably the most common of all of them. But what's interesting about this specific doll that I'm holding is that he was used as a real promotional item for a real bank, which just shows you how crazy popular troll dolls were. You could convince someone to open a bank account just by offering them a free plastic doll. If you can find a toy store that still is around after Toys R Us went out, I don't know where toy stores are anymore, but they are called Zelfs. And they are manufactured out of Australia from a company called Moose Enterprise, and they are based off of the artwork of a woman named Amber Matthews. Amber Matthews is a polymer clay artist, and she does little polymer clay figurines that she calls troll flings. And she said, well, I consider my sculptures to be 75% troll. We said, that's good enough for us, that's a troll doll. And they do count towards the record. They have an interesting connection, which actually, as we go into the next room, so if you remember upstairs, who looks an awful lot like this guy, who is their creator. His name was Rolf Lidberg, and he was a famous naturalist and illustrator. And his trolls have since become very popular with people. He's since passed away. Swedish folk art trolls. This guy right here, basically, most Swedish folk art trolls are basically just a round wooden ball with fur on top. That's the easiest way to sum them up. Below them, on this shelf, are some knee-form or knife-form trolls, depending on your pronunciation. And they are a troll line that is unrelated to all the other troll dolls and have their own collector's market. A folk artist in Norway who passed away about 40 years ago. And you just cannot find his stuff. And that stuff, his artwork is extremely valuable. Cultural crossover in the trolls. Now, you descendants of the frost giants who were cursed by the gods to live in the darkness. The creator then would have, they're a modern day creation. They're not an elf, they're not a leprechaun, they're not a gnome, they're their own separate being. He was created in the 1940s by a woman named Tove Jansson. His first appearance was on the bedroom wall of her brother because they got in an argument. She lost and she called him a troll, and she drew a big troll on the bedroom wall in retaliation. These little trolls. And they created this little guy that they called Mr. Sumpy. Well, it's a toy from Finland. Someone from England got a hold of one of these guys and said, you know what? He'd make a great mascot for our magazine, the TV Times, which was the BBC equivalent of the TV Guide here in America. And they appropriated him, which is a fancy academic word for stole, and said, you know what, we're going to do all of our promotions using Tivy. They renamed him as in TV, and they had children's contests to make your own Tivy dolls. Explicitly defined as a diminutive elf, and his appearance is similar to some of the troll-type creatures in Scandinavia, depending on the country that they're in. His name's Norgay, and he had a couple other trolls that he hung out with, and then promoted everything Norway with the mascot. Over here, I'll tell you at the end, because we're going to loop right back around here. Largest is in the upper right, and then this guy down front with the black jacket was handmade by someone in South Korea. And then the marionette is a rather rare piece. The serious collectors who visit us kind of go gaga over the marionette. Of Christmas trolls, I love to point out the Santa Claus trolls with the beards and the facial hair. They did make troll dolls that had facial hair, but they are fewer and far between, which means that they are more rare and more desired by collectors. And they play pranks on you the entire month of December if you don't leave out a special treat for them. When you do so, and if you've been a good boy or girl, on Christmas morning they will put treats and presents in your shoes. If you've been bad, they'll stick a rotten potato in there. GRYLA. We tell the kids when they visit, if they've been good, they got nothing to worry about. But if they're naughty, they might not want to look behind the curtain. But she has a cat called the Christmas cat. And that cat eats boys and girls who have not received an article of clothing as a gift for Christmas, and I think parents made that up. He lives under a waterfall. He plays a magic violin that creates all of the sounds you hear in the forest. One of the things that he can do is teach you how to become the world's greatest violin player. The cost is a giant ham. You tie a rope around the ham. You throw it over the waterfall. If he reaches his hand out, grabs the ham, and pulls it in, he signed the contract and accepted payment. It's your job to show up bright and early before the sun comes up, crawl into his cave underneath the waterfall. He'll spend all day and night teaching you everything you need to know to become the world's greatest violin player. And you know that you've got all the skills you need when your fingers start to bleed. Trolls are historically known to be very talented musicians, and if you encounter a troll playing music in the forest, be wary. Sometimes they're very ornery and they might use their magical music to enchant you and force you to dance against your will. It's a gorilla. In that he has hooves instead of feet, a tail, he has a green beard, and like most trolls, he's a shapeshifter. You take your shoes off, wear them on the opposite feet, and wear your clothes inside out, and that just confuses them and he can't bother you. Many of the earliest Brothers Grimm fairy tales, it's difficult to figure out what exactly is the moral of this story, because it's not always a happy ending. One interpretation is make sure your family and friends don't take advantage of you when you were in trouble. You'll often see a troll dressed up in all of their finery, usually a little kid hiding somewhere in the picture. Love treasure. One of the most famous stories about trolls and their treasure is in a book called The Hobbit, where they encounter a cave filled with treasure that has been hoarded by trolls. They call it a troll hoard. This is the hoard of treasure from which a troll will have to give you a reward from if you answer one of his riddles correctly. Specifically, the more specific you can get, the better, because you're not going to find a troll that says, "I love Lincoln City, Oregon," anywhere but Lincoln.
Here's the troll parking. And I don't know, something. Now another attraction here in Alliance is the Cat Fanciers Association. They have a feline historical museum. They're closed right now, and then I don't have time to go see it, unfortunately. It's a vintage Pepsi sign. Oh, and here's a caboose. Why not? They're very kind and gave me some merch. I even got a troll from the troll hole. Alright, so that was the Troll Hole Museum. Big thanks to Lori and David who were there. We arranged the appointment with them. They're usually not giving tours around this time. And they also gave me some merch. So thank you so much to them. The museum is great. I highly, highly, highly recommend a tour of that if you're like in Northeast Ohio, anywhere. Definitely worth the drive down to take a tour. And they're also doing an event in late April. I think they're trying to make it into a bigger thing. So go look at their website. I'll put a link in the description, and you can find more information about that event and others they're doing here in town. So anyways, if you like this video, I have a lot of videos at roadside attractions and museums, so please go check those out, and thanks for watching.